The doorbell rang just as I was finishing my morning coffee, the smell of it still hanging in the kitchen. When I opened the door, Marla stood there with a bright smile and a wicker basket brimming with clothes draped over one arm. Her hair was pinned up neatly, her lipstick fresh. Her perfume drifting past me like a signal of some distant, expensive world. "Our washer's acting up again," she said, tilting her head slightly. The kind of casual charm she used when she wanted something. "Could you do this while Mom and I go shopping? It won't take long." I hesitated only a second before stepping aside to let her in. Of course, I said, automatically. Helping had become a reflex. Before I could even ask what she was shopping for, she was setting the basket on my counter and straightening her jacket. "Thank you, Merelda. You're a lifesaver." And then she was gone, sliding into the passenger seat of a gleaming SUV idling at the curb. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of her mother behind the wheel hair, perfectly coiffed sunglasses, dark enough to hide her eyes. They didn't wave as they pulled away. The sound of their laughter drifted back like an echo from another life. I carried the basket to the laundry room, the weight of it heavier than it should have been. When I set it down and peeled back the top layer, my fingers brushed silk. Beneath it, more silk, soft cashmere, and a pair of shoes still wrapped in tissue. All of it brand new tags, crisp colors rich a small fortune of fabrics sitting on my counter. I stood there, holding one of Marla's blouses, feeling the fine weave between my fingers. This wasn't what a broken washer sent over for a quick favor. This was something else entirely, and I felt the first flicker of unease settle in my chest as I turned toward the sink to start sorting. I sorted slowly, not because the laundry was difficult, but because something didn't feel right. Each item I lifted from the basket seemed more expensive than the last soft blush silks, Italian cashmere, and a cream-colored scarf with a label I'd only seen in fashion spreads. It all smelled faintly of rosewater and money, like the cosmetic counters Marla used to drag me past with a practiced smirk. I held up a delicate blouse, the stitching so fine I knew it hadn't come from any department store sale. I folded it carefully and placed it on the pile, then hesitated before reaching for the next piece. A memory came back Christmas morning just last year. Evan and Marla unwrapping the new washer I'd saved months to afford. They had thanked me with exaggerated hugs and promises that now everything would be so much easier. So why were they bringing their laundry here? I wiped my hands on a towel and went to the living room. My laptop sat open on the side table where I'd left it. I sat down and typed in my banking login with a familiarity that felt both comforting and now necessary. The home screen took a moment to load, and when it did, my eyes went straight to the recent activity. A spa, a boutique, dinner at a steakhouse I couldn't afford on my retirement checks. I clicked for the full list. A week's worth of charges, hundreds of dollars at a time, and every single one traced back to the secondary card I'd once handed Marla for emergencies. My breath caught in my throat. I scrolled slower now, scanning each line like it might offer an explanation, but they all said the same thing. She wasn't just doing this behind Evan's back. She was doing it behind mine, too. I leaned back in the chair, hands resting in my lap, the glow of the screen lighting the doubt in my mind. Something was happening beneath the surface, and I'd been too willing to look away. Then the doorbell rang and I stood without thinking. The doorbell turned out to be a delivery, just a package for my neighbor left at the wrong house again. I placed it on the porch and came back inside. But the moment was broken. The warmth of routine had drained out of the day. All that remained was the light of the screen and the quiet ticking of the wall clock behind me. I sat back down and opened the credit card tab again. My eyes ran down the list line by line. $184.62 Seasons Spa Full Service, $329.49 Luxe Threads Boutique, $212.18 Mariner's Bistro. The names meant nothing on their own, but I knew the places. I'd passed them downtown, luxury fronts with sleek glass windows, minimalist signs, and prices that made me wince. I never stepped inside. This card was never meant for brunches or facials or handbags. It was meant for emergencies, gas textbooks, groceries if the month ran short. I gave it to Marla when Evan was out of work 2 winters ago. She said she was scared, and I believed her. I stared at the charges again, looking for a pattern. And then I saw it. Every purchase just far enough apart to feel unrelated. Just low enough to go unnoticed until they weren't. A small boutique on a Monday. A salon 2 days later. A restaurant on the weekend. Different locations, different times, different disguises. But it was all the same script. And Evan. Not a single mention. Not a call. Not a text asking for help or explaining a bump in the bills. He'd said everything was fine last time we spoke. Smiled like nothing was off. I felt something cold slide down my spine. Not just misuse strategy. Quiet theft masked in silk and perfume. I stood and walked to the laundry room where the basket still waited. I touched the edge of one scarf and realized I was holding the evidence in my own hands. Nothing in it felt accidental anymore. And then I saw it. Marla's tote bag half-zipped, sitting just beside the washer. The tote bag sat slumped on the counter, its zipper gaping just enough to show the glint of a phone screen. A vibration cut through the quiet, short, insistent, like a whisper asking to be heard. I reached to set it aside, meaning only to tuck it safely out of the way, but the name glowing across the screen stopped me mid-motion. Rick. I didn't know a Rick. Not a cousin, not a classmate, not a co-worker of Marla's that she'd ever mentioned. Beneath the name, a message unfurled each word as deliberate as a scalpel. She trusts you. Get her to talk about the house. Evan won't push. My thumb hovered over the glass. I shouldn't look. I knew that. But the words burned into my eyes, pulling me deeper. I swiped, and the screen opened without a passcode. Threads of messages scrolled up like a rope to a trap I hadn't known I'd stepped in. Dates, amounts, names. After she signs, she'll think it's Evan's idea. Transfer before end of quarter. My hands began to shake. This wasn't about shopping trips or designer clothes. This was about my home, my savings, my will, everything I had built and protected for decades. I scrolled further. Rick's tone was always directive. Marla's replies curt but obedient. Got it. Will do. We'll make her think it's to help Evan. It was all there in plain language, a blueprint of how to use my trust to strip me bare. I set the phone down slowly, as if it might explode. My heart hammered in my chest, but my thoughts were suddenly clear. This wasn't an oversight or a mistake. It was a plan. The basket of clothes now looked like evidence, not a favor. The scent of perfume like a warning I'd ignored too long. I pressed my palms flat on the counter to steady myself and felt a strange calm settle over me. It was time to decide what to do before they came back through that door. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. There wasn't room for that anymore. Instead, I walked to the living room, sat down at my desk, and picked up the phone with steady hands. The first call was to the bank. I told the manager, Linda, a woman I'd known for years, that I needed to cancel a credit card immediately and revoke all secondary access. She asked if I was sure. I said I was. She didn't press. In less than 10 minutes, the card was locked, permissions erased, and the account flagged for unusual activity. I hung up and stared at the framed photo on my shelf, Evan, at 10, grinning with 2 missing teeth. A child I raised to be kind. I still wasn't sure how much he knew. But I knew Marla's fingerprints were all over this. The second call was to my lawyer. I need to place my house in a temporary trust, I told him, with specific limitations and no shared access until I review my will. He was quiet for a beat. Is this about your daughter-in-law? I didn't answer directly. Can you draw it up today? He could. Within 2 hours, the paperwork was ready. A courier would drop it off for signature that afternoon. Everything felt like it was moving quickly, but also with the slow, satisfying weight of control returning to my hands. I stood, walked through the house and checked the doors. I didn't change the locks. Not yet. I wanted them to walk in like nothing had changed. I wanted them to see the folded letters on the kitchen table. The silence waiting like a loaded page. Back in the laundry room, I turned off the machine. I didn't touch the clothes again. Let them sit there damp and forgotten, just like the respect I was supposed to have been given. Then I took out a clean sheet of paper and began writing. Not with anger, with clarity, the kind that only comes after you stop making excuses for people who never deserved them. I sat at the dining table with 2 sheets of cream stationery in front of me, the kind reserved for birthdays and condolences. Today they would serve a different purpose. No embellishments, no apologies. I began with Evan. I wrote plainly. I told him what I had seen, what I had confirmed, and what decisions I'd made to protect what was mine. I included screenshots of the credit card statements highlighted, categorized, and a list of the dates each charge had occurred under his silence. Then I attached the legal document, the notarized copy of the new trust that placed my home beyond reach, at least for now. I didn't accuse him outright. I simply stated the truth. That trust isn't a given, it's earned. And once broken, it leaves a silence too heavy to ignore. Then I turned to Marla's letter. This one was shorter. Not because there was less to say, but because she already knew everything I'd uncovered. I wrote the words like a mirror, cold, clear, and unflinching. I laid out the timeline, the use of my resources, the messages I found between her and Rick, and I added a single line. If you ever thought I wouldn't notice, you misunderstood the kind of woman I am. I printed the screenshots, tucked them neatly behind each letter, clipped each bundle with a silver paperclip. When I stood to place them on the table, I paused for a moment, then set Marla's letter slightly closer to the chair she always chose, as if proximity might force her to look first. The laundry basket still sat by the washer untouched. The machine was off the water, drained. Let it wrinkle, let it sour. I wasn't finishing what they started. Before I walked away, I looked around the house once more. My house, my name on the deed, my hands that had cleaned every inch, paid every bill, built every piece of it into a home. Then I turned off the lights and waited for the sound of tires on the gravel. The sound of the engine pulled into the drive right at 6, like clockwork. I sat in the guest room door cracked open just enough to hear. Their laughter floated in, first Marla's high-pitched and theatrical, her mother's smooth and indulgent. The kind of laughter that filled expensive stores and believed it was owed every bit of attention it drew. The front door opened. Heels clicked across the tile. Shopping bags rustled, followed by the unmistakable sound of something being set down on the counter. Then silence. Not the polite kind. The kind that scrapes. "Where is she?" Gloria's voice asked first, low and dismissive. Marla didn't answer. I imagined her walking to the table, seeing the envelope, with her name, the neat stack of paper, the screenshots clipped behind. I imagined her trying to pretend, even for a second, that it was a misunderstanding. A chair scraped back. Paper unfolded. Another silence, sharper now. The next sound was her phone buzzing to life, probably reflex. Maybe she wanted to call Evan or text Rick. Maybe she thought she could undo whatever had just hit her. But instead, I heard her mutter, almost breathless, "It's declined." A pause. Then again louder. "It's declined." The plastic bags rustled as Gloria stepped forward. "What do you mean? You probably typed it wrong." "No," Marla snapped, panic edging into her voice. "It's not working. It's—" She cut herself off. Another moment passed. Then paper again. The rustle of the second envelope. I knew she was reading Evan's letter now. Gloria's voice dropped to a whisper. She knows all of it, Marla said. She knows everything. There was no more laughter, no movement, just a thick, uncomfortable quiet hanging in the air. I stayed where I was, back straight, hands folded, letting the weight of their discovery settle. They hadn't just walked into a house. They had walked into a line they never expected to meet. And they knew they didn't live here anymore, not really. They had lost something you can't buy back. The next morning, I packed a small overnight bag and left the house just after sunrise. I didn't leave a note. I didn't feel the need. By noon, I was sitting on the weathered porch of Elise's cottage, watching the waves rise and fall beyond the cliffs like they had for hundreds of years, steady, indifferent, unshaken. She handed me a mug of coffee, strong and sweet, just the way I liked it, and sank into the chair beside me without a word. We didn't speak for a long while. We didn't need to. Later, we walked the cliff path, the wind tugging at our jackets, our feet kicking up little sprays of pebbles as we laughed about the time we'd both gotten lost in Paris, chasing a restaurant that didn't exist. Elise had been my friend for nearly 4 decades. She'd seen me through Evan's birth, my husband's passing, and every quiet unraveling in between. "You're calm," she said that evening, while we sat inside with blankets over our knees and soup warming on the stove. "I am," I replied. She waited. "Then, are you okay?" I took a slow sip of coffee, watching the steam curl upward. "I finally stopped explaining myself," I said. "I used to think I owed people reasons, justifications for my limits, for my no. But I don't anymore. I set the boundary. That's enough." Elise nodded, but she didn't press. That was the thing about old friends, they didn't need you to perform. That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. No midnight checking of locks. No rehearsing conversations I'd never wanted to have. Just the hum of the ocean outside the window and the soft creak of old wood settling around me. When morning came, I took a walk alone along the beach path. The wind was sharp, but I welcomed it. For once, I didn't feel small against the world. I felt like I'd finally stepped into it, fully, quietly, on my own terms. The call came Monday morning, just after I'd returned home and unpacked the last of my things. I saw his name flash across the screen and let it ring once before I answered. Mom, Evan said. His voice was low, tired. "Why didn't you just talk to me?" I sat down at the kitchen table, the one where I'd left the letters, the one that used to hold birthday cakes and school projects. "I did," I said. "More than once." He didn't respond right away. "I told you the card was for emergencies. I told you I was worried about the spending. I asked if everything was okay. You smiled, thanked me, and kept swiping." He exhaled, slow. I could almost hear the gears turning, the need to defend himself building in his throat. I didn't realize You didn't ask, I said. "That was your choice." The silence between us stretched, and I let it. For once, I didn't rush to soothe him. I didn't offer excuses on his behalf. I'd done that too many times already. I saw the charges, Evan. I saw the messages. From her. From Rick. I know what they were planning. And I know you didn't stop it. He still didn't speak. "I've changed the trust," I continued. "I've secured the house, the accounts, everything. What was mine is still mine. What was given freely is no longer available without conditions." I waited. Nothing. "Do you have anything to say?" I asked, not softly, not sharply, just honestly. Another breath. "Then I didn't mean for it to go that far." "But you let it," I said. "And that's why we're here." I could feel him nodding even through the line. Not in agreement, just in resignation. "I need to think," he said. "That's fine," I replied. "Take your time." I didn't say goodbye. I just ended the call and turned off my phone. Let the quiet return to the house like an old friend. Let it stay as long as it needed. The weeks passed quietly, and for once I let them. I stopped filling the silence with second chances. I joined a local book club at the library. Mostly women around my age, some younger, all with opinions that spilled over teacups and underlined pages. We laughed too loudly, debated too earnestly. It felt good to belong without being needed. I dusted off my watercolor set paints cracked from years untouched and started again. Mornings were slower now. I didn't rush to prepare for anyone. I brewed my coffee, opened the curtains, and painted small things: a sprig of lavender, a blue window frame, a seashell I'd kept from Oregon. One afternoon, a letter came in the mail. Handwritten. Evan's name in the corner. I opened it cautiously, unsure if it would sting or soothe. It wasn't an apology. Not exactly. He thanked me for telling the truth, for protecting what I had built, for drawing a line he didn't realize he'd already crossed. He said he was still figuring things out, that he hoped I was well. There was no mention of Marla, no defense, no denial. Just a few words that let me know he understood even if it came too late. Marla never called, never wrote, and that was fine. Sometimes silence was the only language left between two people who'd both stopped pretending. The house remained in trust. But I added one name: my granddaughter Liza. She'd started coming by every Wednesday after school. I helped her with essays, showed her how to boil pasta without burning it, taught her to listen to herself mostly. She asked good questions, honest ones. She didn't want things from me. She just wanted time, and that I could give freely. One evening, as she sat curled on the couch reading, I watched her trace a finger under every line, soaking it in, earning what she learned. The living room felt warm, still. Not just mine anymore, but finally shared the right way. This time I knew exactly who I was building this life for.